Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Late Night Learning. I am your host, Dr. Anthony Palomba. Today we're going to take a slight deviation from entertainment marketing and media management topics, and research topics for that matter, and we're going to dive into personal branding and interviewing skills. So some of you might be on the job hunt as we're speaking, or some of you may be looking for a different job or a different vocation, and you're trying to think of ways in which to get into the industry. How do I get into an industry? How do I break into an industry that I'd like to work in, whether it's entertainment or banking or healthcare or anything like that? Today we're going to be talking about different methods that you can take in order to improve your chances of securing employment and making those relationships. Networking is similar to making relationships, but the idea here is that we're building relationships. We're not just talking to a VP or a manager at a company for a few moments and then kind of speaking out to somebody else. In this lecture, we're really going to come through with different ways in which to connect to people and to make sure that we're sustaining and maintaining a relationship. This passion of mine for networking and relationship building comes from experience. The first job that I got out of college was working for an entertainment lawyer. I got that from staying in touch with my high school guidance counselor. That's a true story. I stayed in touch with my high school guidance counselor for 4 years after high school. When I knew that I wanted to work in entertainment law, because I thought I was going to go into entertainment law, it made sense to contact her. And sure enough, she was living right next door to an entertainment lawyer. And so networking and relationship building can do a whole host of things for you. Most recently, I was fortunate enough to do some consulting work for a TV channel. And so the VP of research at that TV channel happened to be somebody I networked with 5 years prior. And so when I was at grad school at Syracuse University, I found this particular professional and I was able to talk to him on the phone for some hour. Past that, we began building a relationship, a professional relationship. 5 years down the road, after completing my PhD at the University of Florida and then teaching, it was one of the first consulting gigs that I got. And I wouldn't have had that but for creating that connection and then maintaining that relationship. And that's what we're going to go over today. So let's go to the next slide. So while you may not have a whiteboard, I want you to look at this slide particularly closely. Take a few minutes and write on a whiteboard, or maybe it's your cell phone, that's probably handy to you. What's your definition of networking? What are some words that come to mind when you think of networking? Meeting professionals. What do you think people should do when they're trying to network? Take a few moments to do so. If you need to pause right here, feel free to pause, take a few minutes, and go through this exercise. It's important to understand what your own personal baseline is when you're talking about networking. What does networking mean to you? Let's go to the next slide. So, important to reach out to professionals before you apply to jobs. Why? It's important to reach out to professionals when you're networking because they might have the inside track to a particular position. They may very well know that some position is about to become available. This happened to me several times throughout my career, in which I found out about positions that were going to be posted days, even a few weeks before it was going to happen. Why? Because I went for a cup of coffee with someone, or I went for a glass of wine with someone that I knew, and they had kept me in mind for a position. And so it's important to get into the habit of doing this. Now, thousands of resumes go out to positions. I have a buddy of mine who is now a producer at the NFL Network. When he was at the production assistant level and he had applied to NBC, he was able to find the human resources rep on LinkedIn. And she said to him, "Josh, thank God that you reached out to me. There were over 2,000 applications for the NBC production assistant position." Wild. For a lot of those resumes, they never have anybody read them. Why? Because they're usually scanned. And what this means is that a lot of companies now have software available to them in which they scan resumes and cover letters. But what would they be scanning for? It's kind of an odd thing. Why not just read it? Or maybe go by GPA, or maybe go by school, or maybe go by previous experience. Why would they scan it? Well, they scan it to look for particular words and phrases that are taken from the job description. If a job calls for you to know PowerPoint and Excel, or if it calls on you to be organized, you better have those things in the cover letter. You better have those things in the resume. Now, with particular technical skill sets like PowerPoint, Excel, SPSS, Adobe, or anything that's technical, that word, that phrase better be in your cover letter. Please make note of this. I cannot stress this enough. If the job calls for you to know Excel and PowerPoint or Adobe or Keynote or whatever it is, it better be in your cover letter. Additionally, you want to make sure that with phrases that are a little bit more conceptual, like organized, like attention to detail, don't just write organized, don't just write attention to detail in a cover letter. It means nothing. Think about it. If I told you that I'm really smart, what would that mean? If I told you that I paid attention to detail, that could mean a whole host of things. What if I told you I could multitask? Does that mean I'm a good juggler? Or could that mean that maybe I'm able to talk to multiple people at once? What does it mean? When you have conceptual requirements in a job description, you have to make sure you properly elaborate in a cover letter. This is really, really critical. Let's look at the next slide. So, how to reach professionals. Finding professionals on LinkedIn is super, super critical. LinkedIn is a wonderful place to search for professionals. You can search for lawyers, doctors, you can search for accountants, you can search for people by company. It's important to do research on a company as well before you reach out to a company via a job application. Why? You want to demonstrate that you're interested. You want to demonstrate that you know about the company. What are a few places to go to? Google News and the company's homepage. Google News will collect all the news surrounding the particular company. If Pepsi has some sort of bad PR go on, or if they do massive layoffs, do you think that those would surface on a company website? No, that is a hard no. Absolutely not. So instead, you want to also look at Google News to find out the good and bad of a company, and going on a company's homepage demonstrates what the company thinks of itself, what it wants the public to know. And you want to be able to formulate a message to professionals. How can you connect to someone on LinkedIn? Unfortunately, I cannot show you that here, but I can tell you the proper steps to do so. 1, have a LinkedIn profile page. Make sure that it has a resume attached to it. And when you look for professionals, click on Connect. Make sure that you go to connect with them. But you are supposed to add a note. What kind of note? Let's look at the next PowerPoint slide. This is a demo of what you can send via email to a professional. Hi, Jessica Smith. My name is Anthony Palomba, and I'm an undergraduate student at CUNY LaGuardia Community College. My major is broadcasting, and I am interested in becoming a television producer. Now, if you carefully look at this, how much of the message is about me? Barely anything. I introduce who I am, my major, and my interest. That is it. Professionals don't know you. Do not give them 3 paragraphs about yourself. They don't care. I promise you, they don't care. Messaging professionals is about stroking their egos, taking an interest in what they do. Please write that down. Please note that. I understand that you are an executive producer at HBO. In Variety this past week, I'm going to stop right there. Variety Magazine is a magazine I subscribe to that's about the entertainment industry. It's an industry trade. By mentioning that I have read an article in Variety, does it demonstrate that I know what I'm talking about? Yes, it demonstrates that I'm plugged into the industry. That's crucial here. I read that HBO recently expanded its production team for a new series on a fictional hospital in Seattle. I would like to learn more about how this impacts your job, as well as more regarding your day-to-day responsibilities. Is it possible to speak with you on the phone for a few minutes later this week? Get people on the phone as quickly as you can when you are networking. You can go back and forth with email, maybe a few times, but the first time, man, please get them on the phone. I cannot stress this enough. This is terribly important. When you get people on the phone, they're able to put more to who you are. They can put a voice to you. If they can find you on LinkedIn and you have your photo up, they can put a voice and a face to who you are. This is critical when 500 people apply for an internship. It is so important to do this. Let's keep going. So email, very quickly, you got to have correct grammar and punctuation. Write short messages. Professionals don't have time to read long messages. I cannot stress that enough. Do not write a lot of messages. Space out your messages over time. And you also want to be top of mind for a professional. Personally, I sit down 3 times a year for about 8 hours. I usually pick a Saturday and I reach out to all of my contacts. I do that 3 times a year. It keeps me top of mind for a lot of people. When the seasons change, I usually hold my hand out and start reaching out to people and just trying to catch up with my professional connects. Oh, how's it going? I saw that your channel's doing this or this company's doing that. How is that going? Hey, listen, would you be interested in a consulting project with myself and one of my classes? Short, sweet, to the point. That's it. I'm coming to them with something. And so that's usually what I do. Let's move along. So we're going to meet for coffee. Now what? If you've made it to this stage, congratulations. This is huge. It is very, very difficult to get professionals to be in front of you at all. This is not an easy feat by any stretch. I just told you earlier that I reach out to people all the time, usually about 3 times a year. Not all of those people get back to me. I'm lucky if 10 to 15% reach out to me from the messages that I send out. So I usually aim to send out 60 to 70 messages. I might get 10, 12 responses back. It's the best that you can do. It's the best that I can do. If you can do better than that, power to you. You're better at this than I am. But, expect a lot of failure with this process. But remember, if people know that I'm doing a gig here or a gig there, they don't know how many people I've reached out to. That's kind of what networking is. You're not only always going to get a bite. In fact, more often than not, you may not hear anything from people. Be comfortable in that. Be comfortable in having most people ignore you. You'll eventually get over it, and it's just not a big deal. Moving along. So we have coffee now. You've reached out to a professional. Let's say it's Jessica Smith from our example. She now wants to meet you for coffee. Awesome. So what do I do? How do I organize all of this? Well, for one thing, write down questions. Have 3 to 5 questions when you're going to meet a professional. It's crucial to demonstrate that you've had some thought about what you'd like to ask them and what you'd like to talk about. Offer to pay for coffee. It's a great gesture to do. It's pretty cheap, and you don't know. Being that generous might inspire them to talk more. It might inspire them to consider you as somebody who they'd like to extend an internship or a job to. So, a $3 cup of coffee, $2 cup of coffee, it can really go, it can move mountains for you. So as you meet for coffee, I recommend bringing a yellow legal pad and having those 3 to 5 questions written down. And I would take notes while you're having the conversation with the professional. Now, you might think that that's kind of odd because we're meeting for a cup of coffee. This isn't school. It's not lecture. This guy's going to think I'm weird for bringing a yellow legal pad. Who does that? Exactly. Who does that? That's going to make an incredible impression on them. It's going to demonstrate that you can take notes well, you're an eager learner, you're an active listener as well. These are all qualities that any job on the planet will look for. And so, once again, you're showing more than you're telling. And that should be a theme that you're kind of picking up here. Don't tell me that you're smart. Don't tell me that you have attention to detail. Don't tell me that you're an active learner. Show me. Show me by bringing a yellow legal pad. Show me by taking notes. Show me by asking interesting questions. Pepper your professional with questions. Don't stop until they start asking you about yourself. A good way to know if you're having a good discussion is if you've been able to drink more coffee than your professional has. So if you both have cups of coffee and his or her cup of coffee is still kind of full and yours is, on the decline, that's good. They're talking, you're sipping and listening. That's good. Eventually, they're going to tire of talking to you. So don't panic. Your guest is likely interested in what you're going to say. Remember, your professional has been talking for so long, they might have a cup of coffee on the table. They might, want to break themselves, which is terrific. This is your moment to shine. This is an opportunity for you to demonstrate and to illustrate your commitment, passion to whatever industry you're seeking to break into. You can discuss things you'd like to do. You can discuss classes. You can discuss class projects, things you'd like, or questions about the industry itself. Industry news is good news. I usually prep my interviews or meetings with professionals by doing research on the company, having a few questions industry-wise about where the company is going. They usually appreciate that. Make solid eye contact. Let me tell you, one thing a lot of employers can't stand about millennials is that they cannot sustain a conversation and they can't make eye contact. Prove this stereotype wrong for the millennials that are listening. Make solid eye contact. Be confident. Own it. Own it. This is your moment. This is your opportunity. It's a platform for you to make your stand. If you brought a notepad, take notes as you are discussing yourself to the professional. He or she will have responses. And remember, they used to be in your position. A VP of 25 years, a president of 10 years, they all used to be in your position. Let's move along. Ending your networking session with a professional, be cordial, be professional. I highly recommend sending a thank you email to them. This is critical. It is so important to do this. You want to demonstrate that their time was valuable. I would even mention a few questions that they asked you. Thank you for the questions around my major, or thank you for clarifying a few questions I had about industry. Be confident, be clear in this. I'd follow up in 3 months. This is a relationship, guys. It's not a contact. This isn't speed dating. This isn't meeting somebody for a few minutes or for a half hour and that's it. Maybe we'll reach out to each other. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. That cannot happen. You're now a professional. As best as you can, try to maintain this relationship. If every 3 months is too much for you, fine. Do every 6 months. You could even do once a year, but you want to be top of mind during some part of the year with professionals. In the last month alone on LinkedIn, I was contacted by a college for a position, and I was contacted by industry for a position. It was actually a firm that I interviewed with 2 years ago, and they still remembered me, and they wanted to reach out to me and ask me if I was interested in a position. And both instances are because I stayed in touch with the professionals, and I didn't have to do anything for those opportunities. Think about that. I was off doing other things, going to work, and because I stayed in touch with people, I was extended 2 opportunities to apply for 2 different positions. That's amazing. Do you think I would have been at the top of the list for those positions? Yeah, I think so. And so this is what can happen for you when you put in all of this effort and energy. Opportunities can start to migrate your way. And it's really, really cool, and I'm very fortunate to have these opportunities. You can have those opportunities as well. And I'm still practicing and getting better at this myself. I am by no means an expert. I hope I'll never be an expert. And I hope that there's always room to grow and that I can keep moving forward with this. You too will stumble quite a bit as you're going through this. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about saying awkward things or messing up things, or, what did they think about the message that I sent them in that email, or did they understand what I was talking about when I said, one day I'd like to get into video games, even though I want an internship in television first? Don't worry about those things. I've messed up and said odd things during meetings with professionals. It can be, it can make you nervous. It can make you not confident in yourself, and so it's a muscle. Networking and relationship building is a muscle, and it's going to take practice. For me, I've been doing this probably 6-7 years, and so it's something that I've been good at, but I always want to get better at. And I'm sure some of you will have the same sentiment as you're moving forward in your own individual trajectories. Let's move along. The interview. So some of you will have an interview in life. And so with relationship building and networking, hopefully an interview surfaces. It goes without saying that you want to dress up and be polite. I want you to closely look at that photo that I have there. It's a beautiful photo, but I'm also saying that when you enter the interviewer's office, you should look around. Why? You want to try to get a sense of the person. Here, if I was interviewing in this office, I would think the person is sophisticated. I would think that the person might read the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. I would probably think that the person has modern taste. If I see a photo of them at a New York Knicks basketball game, might I bring that up at the beginning or at the end of the interview? Oh yes, absolutely. Try to find touchstones, different pieces, different connections that are available to you in the office. Remember, the office is the second most intimate place for a professional. The most intimate place for a professional, for anyone, is their bedroom, of course, or their house. Second most intimate place is definitely their office. They might have pictures up, artifacts up, other things. Pick up on this stuff as you are entering in somebody's office. Do your research on the interviewer. Please, if you know that Molly Williams is interviewing you and she has a LinkedIn page, go find it. If you don't know if she has a LinkedIn page, go look. Always look up any professionals you are interviewing with through LinkedIn. You can find out their education, where they lived, causes that they're passionate for, skills that they have. You can compliment them on certain things that they have on their LinkedIn page. You can bring up, I too went to Fordham University. Oh, I also volunteer at animal shelters. Whatever the case may be, LinkedIn and the office are two primary elements in the composition of what a professional is like and what they offer to the rest of the world. Use it and exploit both to your advantage. Let's look at the next slide. Interview continued. You want to ask questions about the job. Always be sure that you ask questions about the job. You want to be sure about what the job will entail. Sometimes a job description will not have everything, or there might be certain tasks that are listed in the job description that you'll primarily be mindful of. Also, make sure you know who your bosses are. Who are you reporting to? Is it one boss or is it two bosses? Make that clear. If you have two bosses, it's twice the work. Be mindful of that and make sure you are clear about what your responsibilities are. You should also ask about opportunities to grow in the company. Are they offering tuition reimbursement? Are there opportunities to learn other skills? Can you laterally move throughout the company? How long do people usually last at this company? Or how long do people work in a particular position before they're promoted? You can ask these kinds of questions to get a sense about how the company values its employees. You may also ask how the interviewer came to work for the company and his or her opinion of the company. This is a wonderful question. I love asking people, what brought you to this university and what made you stay? It's a great question. It'll give you a sense of what attracted them initially to this university and to see why they've stayed. It's really, really key to understand these elements because you're going into the same company that they've entered into. You want to demonstrate awareness and critical thinking, show your hunger if And when you are asked if you have any questions for the interviewer, I would ask at least 2 to 3 questions. Demonstrate hunger, demonstrate interest, demonstrate that you're curious. They want to see this running out of the gate. Your excitement for a company and anticipation for the company is highest before you are hired. You want to demonstrate your enthusiasm. So in this lecture, we've discussed a little bit of networking and a little bit of professional relationship building. We know that this is a really, really difficult thing to do for a lot of people, and the biggest thing is to go step by step here. Start with creating a LinkedIn profile. You shouldn't need to pay for it. There are options to pay for a LinkedIn profile page. You really don't have to. I think the biggest thing is making sure you have a resume as a PDF that's on your LinkedIn page and listing your jobs, listing your education as well on the LinkedIn profile page. And you can look me up, Anthony Palomba, PhD on LinkedIn. You can see kind of how I've done my own profile page. That's my own recommendation. You can do as you wish there. Additionally, when you're sending out those notes as you're connecting to professionals on LinkedIn, keep them short and sweet. Hi, my name is Anthony Palomba. I am a college student at Manhattan College. I'm interested to learn more about what you do as Vice President of Original Programming at AMC or MTV. Period. That's it. Remember, when you're adding professionals and you're connecting with them, you're only given about 150 characters or so. So it's not really much left that you have when you're trying to message them. And remember, cast a wide net. It's going to take you a few weeks to start connecting with professionals. More often than not, you will be rejected, you will be ignored. That's okay though. It still happens to me most of the time. And so that's just kind of a thing with networking, right? If you were on the street and you had flyers and you were trying to give them out to everybody on the street, think how many people would actually talk to you. Most people would brush you off. It's kind of the same way with networking and relationship building, but don't get discouraged. It will get better. It will get easier. Well, that's all we have for Late Night Learning. As always, keep laughing and keep learning.